Conclusion to chapter 46. What is this chapter about? Jacob, in the previous chapter, heard Joseph's life. They need to go to Egypt. Pack up everything. They go to Beersheba. They bring an offering. And then they ultimately go down to Egypt, where Jacob then meets Joseph. But before that is mention of all the sons, all of them that went. 66 went in offspring, and then not counting the girls except for the one. And then there is the 17 total, because there's still the 3 wives that went with, and most likely then Dina is included in that number. But yeah, that is what basically see in this chapter. So is there anything, what can we take from this chapter? I sort of alluded to it already in some of the teachings on the verses, and I will just focus on that point now. And that is that, sometimes things happen which we don't understand, which doesn't make any sense at all. But God knows what He's doing. In this chapter we see this again. Jacob, the first time he fled Canaan was for his life. Okay, let's just take a step back. When Isaac had to find a wife, Abram sent his servant out of the country of Canaan to go and bring a wife. Isaac himself, yes, he moved maybe a little bit south, but even didn't go to Egypt. It was like in that area most of his life. But when he got to Jacob, he left, okay, because, to go and search for a wife, but because of the lying to his sister, lying to his father and deceiving his father with the help of his mother, with his help. So he had to flee for his life, and he fled with nothing. And now he came back after that, and he had this whole reconciliation with Esau, and now he's on his way to go and meet his son in Egypt. Now, Isaac nearly never left Canaan, while Jacob spent so much time either in the north. Now he's going to end his life in Egypt. Why would good God do something like that? Could he have understood? Right, there was this prophecy about 400 years they were suffering the Egyptians. Did Jacob really understand that prophecy at that stage? Did he understand what it means? Okay, now we're going to Egypt and we're supposed to be under there. How does this even work? Why? What's God's plan here? But we don't know that. Okay, we don't see it mentioned in the text. We've seen it mentioned earlier, but not in this story of Jacob. Okay, so as if it was mentioned to Abram, that prophecy, but we read it because Moses reminds us of this, but this is not really seemingly playing a big role in this story here. But still, so he would have had this so wide Egypt. He could not have foreseen, he could not have understood, and he would have been, but it wasn't really, in a certain sense, maybe asking that question too much. It was just, Joseph is there, and that's all that matters, therefore I'm going. Joseph is there. And when we look back at this, okay, and I've alluded to this a number of times, you have a small little family of 66 people, 69, 70. Some other daughters they're thrown in. We don't know exactly how many wives of the sons, how many they had. We don't exactly know as well either. But even if it's 150, right, that's a small little group. Now, 150 small little group that's not really seen. I've experienced this in my life. When you have a small ministry, people don't really care about you. Because you're a small ministry, you're a small church, people don't really care about you. But the moment you start growing, I've experienced that as well. You start growing your ministry, and we have more kids coming to a camp, and then other people start taking notice, and then they put you on their radar. And as you grow more, then they start spreading stories. Because now they're trying to get rid of you, because you start to become a danger to their pockets, to their influence. I was literally, I don't even want to go down that, but it had happened to me that for 3 years I couldn't go to church because of literally someone who, I became a danger to this person, and spread all these rumors. So Jacob and his family, small, fine. But if they start growing, then other people are going to take more notes. They're going to remember, oh, Shechem, we remember what happened there. Maybe we need to get rid of this before it grows bigger. Just get rid of this problem. So as they grew, they were going to face bigger problems. And they were going to face the overlords of the Egyptians some of the time, because the Egyptians were running the show in that area. And then what? And then what? Would they just be destroyed? And as that? Would they be forced into, just enough of them killed so they can never grow? Or would they be assimilated into other nations and lose everything? Okay, so God sent Joseph to Egypt. Why? Because there was a famine coming to save people. Not only his own people, but other people as well. Why? Because the Egyptians were the superpower. Where are you going to look for? The Egyptians weren't depending so much on the rain because of the water of the Nile. So there were the 7 good years we could produce. And they were a breadbasket, lay in Iraq area, right? Babylon. And they had all the context, the trade routes, all of that. So this is a perfect place for all of this so that they can, and yes, sure, the superpower to protect them. Okay? And I just want to quickly throw this in there, like a little bit like how in South Africa for us, well, not only the Afrikaner people, but now I know it's for all minorities of Africa that's now can go to or apply for asylum in America. Okay, so like Elon Musk, who was born and grew up in South Africa, going to America, and he's like the Joseph figure. I'm not saying this is not what happened, right? I'm just saying it's a kind of a little bit like the Joseph figure. Now there, that one South African, like second command, it's not second in command, that's Vice President J.D. Vance, but kind of an important role there. And then all of a sudden, now Trump is making it possible for us to go and apply for asylum in America. So kind of give a safe haven before who knows what might happen in South Africa, the way things are going. Okay, so a kind of a modern day version of this whole story. And so you have a superpower where you can then find security, you get a better passport, you can travel more around, going to places, do things. So we don't always understand these things. Looking back at this story specifically, we can understand now that this is everything that God was doing. Jacob couldn't understand it. Joseph didn't understand, but God knew what he was going. So they were taken out of a dangerous situation, placed in protective custody, literally in a protective place, in the best place of the land where they could grow. And in 200 years' time, they could grow into a big, mighty nation of a few million people, okay, safely. And there's other things in Wales. The Egyptians had history, right? They had writing. They had all these things where their history could be preserved so that when the time comes, Moses can learn this history and he can take it and he can teach other people what he is doing now at this moment by writing this down while they're on their way to the promised land in the desert. Okay, all of these things, when you look at it, makes perfect sense. Makes sense why Moses then grew up in the palace, where he could get all this information to see how it all fits, and where he could put these parts in with the new things that God was showing to them, right? Simple, actually, very simple. But they could not. Jacob did not know this. So therefore, in the beginning of the chapter, God comes to him and say, "Don't worry, you go down there, right? Go down there. I'm sending you there. This is what I'm doing." Okay. So the people going to Canaan, and I think we might not be able to finish because the rain is coming now very fast in this direction. So for the people on the way to Canaan, right? They could look at all these numbers and they could see how God fulfilled the promise to Abram of the lots of children, right? God fulfilled that. So the other part of the promise, well, two other parts, that they will be a blessing to others, and as well, and they have been already, Joseph is now a blessing to the world, but the land. So they're on their way. If God could fulfill that, and they looking amongst themselves, they could see God did this. Okay, so therefore, God can give them the land. They have no excuse to say no and to be afraid to go to the land and fight for the land. And I think we might need to stop here because the rain's coming very fast and we still need to get out of the rain. So I have still some things just to say about us and our reaction to this. Okay, thank you.